Welcome back, guys. We are here for our regular update for Phyrexia All Will Be One. I've got Yanks on the call. We're going to discuss some of the cards that we think have either over or underperformed our initial expectations. We're going to go over like our all-star uncommons, as well as what we think the best 3 colors are in the set for drafting and sealed, and just kind of generally talk about the format and how it's played out. Welcome back, Yanks.
Hello, everybody.
So tell me, what do you think of this format overall? Because it is a lot.
How much time do we have?
Ooh, yeah, like
this
15 minutes.
This I don't know how many sets it's been, but this is possibly my least favorite limited format ever.
Ever?
It's certainly my least favorite since Ikoria, and that's the only one I can think of that's close to as much as I dislike this format.
You liked Midnight Hunt better than this?
Yes. I thought the drafting portion of Midnight Hunt was worse, but I thought the gameplay was much better.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we have to do another one of those update videos where we go over the top 10
most recent sets.
Yeah, most recent sets and rank them. Yeah. Okay. That's on the to-do list because we disagree wildly here. Don't get me wrong, I don't like this set, but there was a lot more sets I think I like less. We're coming off of some really poopy draft sets.
I have not been a fan of recent sets. I thought Dominaria United was pretty good. I was not a huge fan of the Brothers War, but it was okay. And I guess it scored points with me for flavor and nostalgia. Mm-hmm. But this one just, I can't do it. I think it's awful.
Yeah, so the thing I don't like about this set, there's 2 things. I don't like fast sets where play draw is a good chunk of what determines the match.
Agreed.
I mean, now you do need to draft a fast deck and you have to, draft a good curve and mulligan aggressively. So there is skill in fast formats, but the die roll, assuming both players do that perfectly, the die roll then determines the outcome. The other thing is, I think this is the most bomb heavy set that we've seen in a long time. There's no like dream trawlers that are sort of like absolutely unbeatable, but we do have some very, very powerful, definitely the most 5s on our scale that we've seen in any set in, I don't know, the past 5+ years for sure. And the nice thing is because the format's so fast, I feel like we don't actually get to see most of those rares, which sort of mitigates that a little bit, but it's still mitigating it with something else I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I think my issues with the set are somewhat similar. I agree on there are too many bombs, particularly at rare. I don't mind it as much if they're at Mythic, but particularly at rare, it's bad. Although, like you said, I don't think the bomb heavy part is played out as bad as I thought it would because it's so fast. That being said, I hate fast formats. I think they are no fun. Games are decided way too quickly, almost entirely determined by your opening hand, plus or minus the die roll.
Yep.
I strongly dislike that. And then finally, my biggest gripe with this, poison can go to hell. Get it out of this game. It's awful.
Yeah,
especially if you're going to combine it where there's no downside with toxic, where you still get regular damage too.
Yeah, you were very against it in the beginning, and it has been very good for me, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we go over.
It's very strong. It's very powerful.
When we go over the best colors, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. I think that the toxic has come together about as well as I had expected in the toxic colors, but it has gotten even, it's outplaying itself in the like sort of weird combos that I didn't think would be quite so toxic, like Gruul or let's go with like Azorius, something like that. We're still getting some pretty crazy toxic kills, which I think is a little too much.
I think I would have less of a problem with toxic. Like if toxic was like you're saying, if it was in green-white or green-black and it was creatures had to hit you with toxic to kill you. Okay, that's annoying still for me, but I could live with that in a couple archetypes. It's the proliferate that makes it a problem for me. You cannot stabilize against the poison deck. It's actually not possible.
Yeah, because there's so much overlap with proliferate colors and the toxic decks, and that's why I think that to my point of the non-toxic color combinations are still getting toxic kills. It's because of the proliferate that's adding to it. Anytime you mix in blue or anytime you mix in black, and black has a couple of toxic as well, you're still getting those kills even with only a handful of those toxic creatures. So it's really, really prevalent in the entire format in all the different archetypes. So very, very out there.
I think the one other issue I don't think we've mentioned, at least to me in this format, is probably since Battle for Zendikar Green, we haven't seen a single color be this bad in a format as blue is in this.
I feel like that can't possibly be true because I have been okay with blue, and I've definitely had some really, really bad colors.
Like, I think if I listed the 10 archetypes in order, the blue ones would be the bottom 5. Or bottom 4. Sorry, not bottom 5.
We've had, in recent sets, we've had some really bad reds. Like, I feel like I know what you're talking about, and I feel like I'm playing more blue in this set for it being the bad color than I am in other sets for that bad color, if that makes sense.
I think that what I've seen, especially with red, because you're right, we've had some bad reds, but red has still been good in those sets as the secondary color. It was just never, it could never be your primary. Here, I don't think blue is good as either.
I mean, I'm still getting some pretty decent Izzet decks. I'm getting some pretty decent Simic decks.
So don't get me wrong, it's not like Battle for Zendikar Green, where you could not play that unless you opened uncommons or rares. If no one else at the table is blue, you can play it, but I don't think if there's 2, you can play it reasonably.
Maybe it's just been my set, because I feel that it's, again, not good, not on my top 3 list by any means, but I'm certainly playing blue about as often as I'm playing other colors because it's the color that's open for me at the time. Maybe it's a little underdrafted, sure, but those decks are still performing reasonably well compared to some sets where it's just like, you cannot be anything other than these 3 colors or you're dead, which I find to be more common in other sets. And maybe that's because those sets are so imbalanced that you have to be in the primary colors versus this set where it's like, this color is not good, so you can still get away with playing it because the other colors are not super overpowered, like with Midnight Hunt.
Yeah, Midnight Hunt's an interesting one. That one felt different just because I think it was more that there was one archetype that was good and then everything else was bad, which was kind of weird. I mean, it was still bad, just in a different way.
That's what I was just saying, which is why in Midnight Hunt I was playing the bad colors, quote unquote, less than I'm playing the bad color here. And I'm having more success in blue here than I am in other sets where those colors were the worst ones of the bunch.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking more that this is the only time it's been a single color. Like in that set, I thought 3 colors were bad.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3 colors are like the worst ones or whatever. And then I usually don't feel like I can win with whatever that color is. This one is the worst, and I'm still winning. So to me, that is fine. But like I said, that's probably just my small sample size versus yours.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Let's go ahead and move into the We Were Wrong cards. These are cards that either Yanks or myself, or both, either didn't think they were as good as they were, or we thought they were much better than they are. And the first one we are going to talk about is the Crawling Chorus. In our set review, I remember being pretty happy with this card just because of the way the format was looking, and I thought this format was going to be very fast. And I believe Yanks was not a fan of this. However, it even outperformed my expectations. So it totally leapfrogged even over me, who was pretty happy with this card. What do you think of it, Yanks?
Yeah, I thought this card was playable. I didn't think it was good. It takes a lot for me to think a 1-mana 1/1 is going to be good. But like I've heard, like read legitimately good limited players discussing that there are packs where it's not unreasonable to first pick this card. And that's nowhere near where I would have ever thought this would play.
Yeah, I thought this card was going to be good in very specific decks, with like Flensing Raptor and some other stuff, maybe some Rakdos, or I'm sorry, sacrifice themes like the Necro Titan. But it is just, honestly, with proliferating things, really just outplayed itself. It's so good. The format really rewards you for going 1, 2, 3, you win the game. 1, 2, 3, if you're on the draw, you still maybe win. 1, 2, 3 on the play, you're absolutely going to win, and this is a key piece to that. So I don't know what the score is that we gave it, but I want to say it's at least half a point to a full point higher than that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So Quicksilver Fisher here is our blue representative. We actually couldn't really think of a card that we wanted to put, but this was the card that most represented for me how blue has fallen short, because I know I was pretty high on this Quicksilver Fisher. The reason is it's a decent rate. It's a good size flyer. It does all the things. It redraws you late game. This is a great card in any other set. However, it's far too slow for what we're doing here in Phyrexia All Will Be One.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this card. Your cost is fine, your stats are fine, looting's great, but like you said, it just by the time you get to do this, you're probably dead or almost dead or about to die to proliferate.
Or you're going to kill them, and this doesn't make the difference.
Yeah, yeah.
I think what it did wrong is that it's in this set.
Yes, yeah.
It should have been a thing in another set because it's just not relevant enough. It's just not doing it.
Yeah, and like you said, this is not meant as a particularly shot at Quicksilver Fisher. It's more a knock on kind of the color as a whole, just being a little too slow compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah,
and this is a good representative.
In fairness, this is the one that stood out to me in that I thought this was going to be very good, but like the rest of the blue, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Moving on, this was an overperforming card here in the Stringing Hive Master. This 3-mana 3/2, not usually stats that we like to see, but it replaces itself. It trades well in this format, and it does like quite a few things that we really, really love seeing in this format. It's a beautiful 1/2/3 curve. It then replaces itself. It eats removal. Definitely a card that's playing up to me.
Yeah, to me, this is a little bit another one of a little bit of a proxy stand-in for just mites being better than I thought they would be. And toxic overall, while I thought it was going to be good, it's better. So anything with toxic is probably overperforming a little bit, and the fact that it leaves behind, we've seen a lot of cards that die and leave behind a 1/1. But the 1/1 with toxic 1 almost feels better than cards that would leave behind like a 1/1 flyer.
Yeah, like the spirits or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the 3/2 bodies are also just a little bit better because this format is so much faster. So the downside of a 3/2 in most formats is you just get bricked on 4. But that doesn't really matter if the game is kind of determined by turn 4. And also, this format is very much about going wide. So the trade here is way better than it is typically.
Yeah, and I guess on the flip side to what I was saying about mites being great, 2 toughness matters because it bricks mites.
Absolutely. One more black card here that really kind of all started for me is Whisper of Dross. This is a card I liked right out of the gate. I didn't know just how much I was going to like it. I am a huge fan of Proliferate. I thought this was going to be a golden card from the beginning, but even though I thought it was a golden card, I thought it was a golden one of, like an include in every deck, but as a one of. But I'm happy to play 2 or 3 of these pretty easily.
Yeah, I think where this is Proliferate is definitely part of why this has been better than expected. I think also because the format's so fast and aggressive, its value as a combat trick has been better than it is in a lot of formats as opposed to just killing an X1.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a fantastic card. Again, playing massively up. Moving on to the Red Furnace Strider. Honestly, 5-mana 4/5s that do a little something, that give it haste or, ETB and do a thing. They are fine. They're usually like, that curve filling situation, but this format is so fast that coming in on turn 5 with a 4-powered haster ends the game. Like, it is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, this is also a good piece in like the best non-toxic deck, the red-green oil counter deck. It just fits so nicely in there, and that deck can sometimes carve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all oil counter cards, and just set up kind of crazy boards. A lot of tricks, get some haste, a lot of interaction. Even just kill me out of nowhere with the stupid Silex because it's got all the oil counters everywhere. Like
usually, these cards are not good enough because you hit this on 5 and you still have a long way to go, and they're not quite impactful enough like in the later turns. But in this, on turn 5, this is enough to sort of check the game in some way.
Yeah, I think you also can see it often show up, be more impactful because you've got some emptier boards because people are, especially if you're dealing with anything with toxic, are more willing to trade off because they can't just let 2 damage through like they might.
Yeah.
In a non-toxic set.
You know what? I think we did not put it on here, but I think we should talk about the shock in the set. The slash.
Hex Gold Slash.
Hex Gold Slash, yeah. I thought it was, again, similar to the Whisper of the Dross. I thought it was going to be good, definitely playable. However, I want to say, usually shocks you're willing to play 1, maybe 2 of in your deck. I will play 6 of that card because it kills 4 toughness toxic creatures, which are a pain in the butt to deal with. It's very good, and it's paying off big. Yeah, go ahead.
I couldn't agree more. I have no problem just first picking that card.
I had 4 in a deck, and I drew all 4 of them, and I always feel like I wanted them. I even had I was playing Is It, and I had the Web Stitcher, or whatever his name is, that puts the spells back on top of your deck, and I was getting back more shocks playing a 5th and 6th copy of them, and I always wanted more. I could never not draw them, and I was always happy. So definitely a card that should be on here. We probably rated it right because, it's not much more powerful than we thought, but it is a lot more impactful than we thought, to where you want to do them more often than you typically would.
It's also, for me, played pretty nicely against the equipment decks, because the 4 Mirrodin ones, with those equip costs usually being a little more expensive, if they're trying to equip something for 3 or 4 mana and then you could just kill it for 1 in response, it's a huge tempo swing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this one, I'm going to let Yanks take the lead on, the Erabrasks Forge. So Yanks, this is not on my overperformed list, but I think it's on yours.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what I said about this card. I remember being very down on the black-green sort of skeleton-type version of this from Strixhaven, maybe? I can't remember what set that was in. Yeah. But it had a very similar effect. And I was wrong on that card. So I'm pretty sure I said that I had the same inclination on this, that it wasn't going to be great, but that I know better that that's wrong, but I still think I underrated it.
Yes, exactly. So I remember you very distinctly being like, I was wrong on that. I got last time, so I'm going to give this a benefit of the doubt and say that this is playable. But it is not just playable. This is freaking absurd. Like, I don't know that I've won a game where someone played this on turn 3. This thing is batshit. I think it's got to be one of the best rares to play on curve. Ugh, it's gross, man.
Yeah, I think the card's very, very good. I mean, I'm going to die on this hill. I still don't think it's as good as you think it is. Partly because if I play this on turn 3 against an aggressive toxic deck, that they don't care at all.
I don't know.
You can't block with any of the things. You've just done nothing on your turn 3 as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, this thing adds up so fast, though. They'll be able to race you.
By turn 6, that's you've still only dealt 10 damage with this, and you're probably dead. If they have no blockers.
And you've cast nothing else and no removal for any of their
but I'm assuming I'm assuming they're doing stuff to your creatures too. Like, I'm assuming you're both playing.
You're assuming that they're curving out with toxic creatures and you're dead.
That's what every deck does. That's what every toxic deck does. They just do it every time.
But you can't say that they curve out with toxic creatures and you play this and do nothing. You have to assume you also did other things and have other blockers.
Well, you're not playing spells. Well, you're not playing toxic. You're playing a very different deck.
Yeah, and we have shocks and like bolts and reasonable creatures in red. So we can, stall quite a few turns, I think.
Yeah, I said, I think this card's very good, but I think because the format is so fast, there are certain decks that just do not care about playing against this card.
I think this card is very, very fast. Oof. So, well, you're up on it a little. You went from thinking that these cards are awful to thinking these cards are playable to now thinking decent plus. No. So next time they print this, maybe you'll be on the right side.
I think in any other format, I think I'd probably call that a 5. In this one, I won't. At this one, I won't because of how fast the ridiculous toxic deck is.
Okay, so I put this next one on the list, the Evolving Adaptive. This is a card I thought would be a home run. The one something Experiment 1 was an absolutely great card. Now, I'm not saying this isn't playable. This isn't good. It It's that it's just not as impactful because the format is so fast. It's not getting super big. It dies to the shock, which is very, very good to play. People are playing in masses, more than they are in any other shock format. And it just doesn't have the time to get big. So I find that where I would have, pack one, picked one, and experiment one, I'm passing this for like some mediocre removal oftentimes.
Yeah, I think the speed of this format has meant that this card is pretty much only good on turn 1 exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might still die to a shock, but then okay, you've traded 1 for 1, 1 mana for 1 mana. That's fine.
It's fine, but like not where I'm actively seeking this out, hoping I get multiples. And sometimes I'm just like, I could take this like good card, or I could just take this other thing. And I find that I'm passing it more often than I thought I would.
Well, yeah, the nice thing with these cards usually is in a slower format, it's a 1-drop that you can play on turn 4 because it's going to grow and get relevant. But if you're playing this on turn 4 or 5, by the time it gets big enough, you're dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Incubation Sac, this is a card, another one that I suggested putting on the list. I thought it would be a 23rd playable card, but I'm seeing it a lot more, and it is a lot more annoying than I expected. So even without like proliferate or adding counters to it in any way, you just get enough bodies that it's relevant. And though the format is very fast, you do have some games where this is relevant, and there are decks that are very fast and can be the aggressor on the board, play the incubation sac, and then use this to swarm the board and crush you.
Yeah, there are still plenty of games where this is bad because of how fast the format is, but the nice thing with it is in the games that aren't that fast, you probably haven't risked too much to play this. Like, you played it on turn 1 when you had nothing else to do, or you just used 1 extra mana somewhere. And then once you stabilize, you can start making 3/3s.
Yeah, I find that when this card is doing its work, it's when they go 1 this, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and then like that's when, okay, maybe you have withstood the onslaught, and it's like, no, just kidding, I have another 3/3 that I'm making every turn while I refill my hand and then have more gas to remove your stuff. So this is very much still, I think, the aggressive card and the aggressor. It's not going to save you if you're behind, but really helps you keep your foot on the gas.
Yeah.
All right, so I think this is the second to last one or the last one. Atraxa Skitter Fang is a card I did not think much of when we did our set review. It's got some decent abilities, but I'm not super interested in a 2/2 for 3. And also, games typically go longer to where, giving something lifelink or flying once or twice is not going to make or break a game very often. It's still very playable, don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was unplayable, but it is a lot more than I thought. Getting the initial toxic point in, you play your 2-drop, and then you play this, pop it up, get your Jawbone, whatever his name is, in for 2 and 2 toxic. That's a golden day.
Yeah, you just got multiple things here that are good. Like, flying is great for getting that first toxic thing through. Death Touch can force them to make an awkward Death Touch versus toxic choice. Lifelink is not as good in this set as it might have been in the past, but it still comes up. And the fact that you can proliferate, every card seems to just have proliferate stapled onto the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you a lot of times can get more than 3 uses out of it. It's great in the oil counter deck. It just kind of fills a lot of holes.
Yeah. It's doing a lot, and sometimes these fast Boros stacks aren't necessarily killing you in poison, so a little lifelink goes a long way too. All right, so I think this is the last one that we put the Dune Mover on. I did not think a lot of it when I first started looking at the set because the set was too fast. I was very team, this is not going to be relevant because I'm not going to want to play a lot of 3-color decks. It'll be fine. But I think we'll find better toxic creatures for 2 mana, which is true. But I will say, because the format is so fast, oftentimes we're cutting lands, and this allows you to keep that 2-lander very comfortably and get the 3rd off the top, thinning the deck, and it's just kind of doing a lot of work even in 2-color decks. What are your thoughts?
I think what you said is right. I think also pretty much anything with the word toxic on it is playable. In the set. And because it's aggressive, anything with any power and a mana cost of 2 is playable.
Absolutely. So again, it's not that we thought it was bad, but it's just playing up. That is the end of the We Were Wrong segment, the cards that we think are doing better or worse. Now, keep in mind, there are lots of cards that are amazing in the set, but the reason they're not on this list is because we probably already thought they were amazing, or vice versa, cards that we kind of just knew were wrong. Make sure you guys leave us a comment down below. We're not done yet, but make sure you leave us a comment down below. Let us know which cards have really surprised you in this format. We would love to hear them, and maybe we can do a little chat about them next time. The next thing we wanted to do was go over just one card each that has really been an all-star for us. Again, just an uncommon, not a rare, because it's hard to draft rares. But Yanks, what do you think about this battle chair that you wanted to point out to us?
So first of all, who doesn't love Colossal Dreadmaw?
True.
It's a 6-mana, 4 green, 6/6 trampoler. Fantastic. The Equip 7 just seemed like so much, and we still thought this was going to be good. But giving things trample, particularly toxic things, has just been really good. Because the format's so aggressive, you've got a lot of low toughness creatures out there. So you can get some green decks that can put some big blockers down and then go over the top with something like this. And this is a key part to those decks.
It's kind of, it didn't really underperform my expectations because I thought it would be fine, but it has been about my expectations or a little under for draft because, again, super fast. However, it was freaking back-breaking in sealeds. Like, I had this on my top end. This was like my bomb in some of my sealeds just because I had really bad pools. And it just won so many games. It was absolutely better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I don't know that it's significantly overperformed my expectations, but it's definitely been one that's at least met it and been really fun.
Yeah. The card I wanted to point out was Tainted Overseer. Tainted Observer, sorry, words. This is a card we knew would be good. It's a great rate. It's a 2/3 flyer with Toxic for 3 mana that had a proliferate attached to it that you could just do over and over again when you're drawing creatures. Fan-freaking-tastic. I was in love with this card from day one. I'm a little sad that the archetype is not quite as good as I had hoped. However, I have had a lot of really, really strong Simic decks, and and because blue is one of the weaker cards, I have had some decks where I get 2 or 3 of these, and those decks are absolutely nutty, and they really do go off. So good decks for this are very good. And I think the medium decks are really where you start to falter, because a medium Simic is going to be much worse than a medium anything else. But I think when you get it, it's gold. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's certainly a strong card. You just got to make sure you get the right deck for it. And when it's there, it's like you're saying, it's very powerful.
All right, so the last thing we wanted to talk about real quick, guys, is what we think the best draft colors are. We didn't want to do archetypes because there is so much overlap between all the different archetypes. Like, you know, there is a dedicated toxic archetype, but you can do toxic in any color of those, any pairings of those 2 colors. So let's talk about our number 1 choice here. Yanks, why do you think it's green?
So my top 3 are all pretty close to each other. That sort of Abzan combination sets, Golgari, Selesnya, and Orzhov have been my best decks, and I just think overall the 2 green ones have been the best for me. They're the heavy toxic colors. They also have a decent amount of proliferate. They're like everything I don't like about the set, but they're the strongest things to me.
Okay. I picked white as my best because I think the 3 best archetypes that I've had the most success with, that I've seen most people talking about, is white. That is like Boros, Orzhov, and Simic. No, I'm sorry, Selesnya. Sorry.
Selesnya, yeah.
Selesnya. Yeah, those I think are the best decks. What do they all have in common? White. We see with Crawling Chorus, Flensing Raptor. These are just like absolute home runs at common, and I absolutely adore them. Black Yanks, not on my list, but barely missed it. I was kind of toying between black and green. What are your thoughts on that? What makes it so good?
It's going to sound repetitive, but toxic. Pretty decent removal. Some proliferate. I'd have it a little bit below green, partly because I think out of the combinations that my 3 colors make, I had the least success with black-white, although it's still been good, and I don't think if you go outside of those 3 colors, like, I think green-red is still pretty good, where I
Mhm.
don't think black-red is particularly good.
Yeah, I have not played any black red really. I think maybe once and it didn't go well. So for me, I put red on the list, which is not on yours, because I find that the red removal is pretty solid. I like the sash, whatever, slash. And I really like the Volt Charge. The proliferate on that's super good. It's making a lot of my decks viable. I've even splashed for those cheaper end red removal spells, which I normally never do. It has to be like the really premium top end stuff for red that makes me want to splash it. And I'm doing those with Doom Movers, and they feel awesome. So I'm playing a lot of like Simic Splash, 2 Volt Surges and 2 Slashes, and that deck is just awesome. So I wanted to put red in there because it's really making a lot of my decks function.
Yeah, I think red is good. I mean, obviously from what I said earlier, blue is a clear number 5, and I think 2, 3, and 4 really for me could have kind of been jumbled up in any order. I
Okay,
do like green the most, but if I tomorrow I could wake up and decide red was third.
fair. So I put green on my list for very similar reasons to you, just a little less relevant. And then the same thing goes for your white. So those are our top 3 guys for basically a lot of the reasons we talked about during the set review. Colors are just performing a little bit differently than we expected. Yanks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate this set?
Like a 2.
Fair enough. For me, I'm gonna go with a 5. I don't hate it. Like, I'm playing the drafts and they're fine. I'm not in love with it. I'm definitely not drafting as much as I normally do, which most of you on YouTube I'm sure have noticed. But it's fine. I'm not like miserable when I'm playing it. Yeah, it's fast. I don't have to deal with a lot of the bombs, so that's good. And that's it.
One thing I will say, a lot of what we talked about, and this is things we got wrong. One thing, maybe I'm presumptuous in speaking for you, but I think that we got very right, and it took about 8 seconds to know we got right, is there was no reason to put all those stupid Praetors in the set.
Well, we didn't even talk about that because we didn't even know they were in
Oh,
there.
I thought we did on the last video. I thought we had found out by then.
No, because
Oh,
yeah, the first video before the set came out when I was doing the streamer early
yeah.
access and someone played it on me and I was like, "What the shit is this?" I was so mad. It was the first time I was like dramatically, because we were live streaming, I was like dramatic over the top with like, "What the heck is this? What were they thinking?" And immediately a Wizards employee was just like, "Hey, if you have any feedback, we would happily take it." And I was like, "Ah, crap."
Yeah, feedback. Don't do that ever again. It was really stupid.
But I was like making it more dramatic and lushing it up in front of them, and I felt kind of bad because like I don't actually care that much. I was like, "Oh, I'm kind of an asshole. Sorry." But yes, I think that the Praetors were unnecessary. I'm certainly seeing at least one per
Look,
draft of the
they
old Praetors.
they're good cards. The art, especially in paper, like the concept art looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep them in set boosters and in. Don't put them on arena. Keep them in set boosters and keep them in collector boosters.
Yeah, well,
There
I
was no
mean,
reason to be in
the
draft
new
boosters.
Praetors were already on Arena.
I might keep it out of the arena draft format.
Yes, I agree. We do not need more bombs in a set that already had plenty as it was, because I think we had more like level 5 bombs in green than we have had in the entire set for the last like 5 sets.
Yeah, and that doesn't even get into things like the Eternal Wanderer.
Yes. So, all right, guys, that's the end of our update. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave us a comment down below, and we will do our very best to get you the mom set review in a few weeks. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching.